What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Willie DC, your favorite part-time collector and JRPG enthusiast. Today I'm here to talk about my impressions of the Reynatis demo that just came out a day or so ago, or maybe a couple days ago, depending on when this video released. But we'll talk about that. That's neither here nor there. Soon you'll be seeing my impressions on this, but before I get into that part of the video, I want you to hit that like button, comment, tell me what you thought about the demo, and subscribe. There'll be more of this coming along the way as long as there's demos about, as long as I'm able to do them. So let's get ready to hop into my thoughts on this. Reynatis' story takes place in the middle of Shibuya. You know, that place where that famous crossing is at. Everything takes place there, and there's this war going on between the MEA, the Magic Enforcement Administration, and the guild. But there's also other types of wizards walking around. These are all people that have powers on both sides, from the MEA, the guild, and those stray wizards. They all have powers. The MEA is keeping the streets clear of the damned and those who are free wizards, and also doing their best to keep track of this drug known as Rubrum. Our first lead character that we end up learning about from the beginning of the game is a girl named Sari Nishijima. She's the poster girl for the MEA, which is basically a task force which is meant to take down the damned and the rogue wizards that may be a part of the guild. She seemingly had a close call with death itself, which ended up with her gaining her powers, and so far she's the shining star of the MEA, and is being pushed into a leadership role early since one of her superiors died in battle. And later on we learn about the second main character that we have. His name is Marin Kitizumi. He is a stray wizard. He roams about with his magic and just doing as he sees fit, and he's a young man who has also had some sort of a history with magic and knowing of it from his father. He has had a close call with death at the age of 14, which allowed his powers to come to him as well. And he's also known about these things known as fog, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So going forward with this game, the gameplay loop, from what I can tell, are very similar between the two characters, but it's kind of more like you're playing as the police and a random rogue. The combat revolves around having MP a lot, magic points, like in any other base RPG, but because the characters here are wizards, they have to rely on magic a lot, and there are two forms where they are suppressed and liberated, because it's a different way to kind of take this combat. Like, it's an action RPG, but the combat goes between two forms of you being suppressed and the other one being liberated. With you being suppressed, you cannot necessarily attack, but you can dodge, and you're given almost like spot dodges, or like these slow-mo dodges when attacks are coming near you, and that's how you gain your MP. Or you can do like this pixel perfect dodge, and it gives you all your MP back. But then when you swing your weapon one good time, you're able to become liberated, which allows you to fight at the height of your powers, and so on and so forth. Both of the characters have this at the beginning, aside from Marin, who has a couple extra abilities attached to him known as Wizard, and those allow him to maintain combos when he is in battle. Now, I know that I mentioned that the gameplay loops of both of these characters seem very similar between the both of them, but I do want to talk a little bit more in depth about that, as I think that this game has something here. It has potential. I think it's interesting enough. But when you're playing as Sari, aka the police, basically, she is out and about with a couple extra soldiers, but she is so well contained within her own ability that she can fight on her own at any given moment. So your job is basically to go around and make sure that none of the damned are walking around and nothing is just kind of out of the ordinary. You stop crimes from happening. Like I said, you're the police here. And you also have side quests along the way that can lower the quote-unquote malice of areas. That's basically all she does, is to clean the streets up. That's literally it. And she can walk around liberated. Basically means she can walk around with her power shown, and nothing can really happen to her in this case here. And that's pretty much it for Sari. But with Marin, it's a different story, because he's like a wanderer of sorts, and he's a wizard, so you don't want to draw too much attention to yourself, because you're not on either side of the fence. You're not with the guild, and you're not with the MEA, so you kind of have to hide a lot if you have to. And he doesn't fight unless he has to, unless he absolutely has to, if a side quest is given to him, or if it's something within the main line that he has to do, which leads to these civilians seeing you in your liberated form. And if the civilians see you in that way after a fight, well, they are going to see you, because you're going to make a spectacle of yourself. Truthfully, you have to find spots or exit the areas to lose the notoriety or calm the trending topic of you being seen using magic. Because when you do that, you get almost like a countdown on the right side of the screen and it goes almost up to where you get to the top trend. If you get to the top trend, the MEA ends up sending out like an elite unit to come get you. And if you don't make yourself scarce in time, you have to fight these guys, and they are not to be played with or not to be trifled with in any way, shape, or form. But he also has these dungeons, like I mentioned earlier. He can see the fog. You may see like these little like ripples in places. Sorry couldn't bother with him, but he could. So with Marin, you can go into these and fight things, like fight monsters and whatnot. No one knows you're in there unless you come out. And it's even shown like towards the very end of the demo, when he leaves one of these fog areas, 3 monsters follow him out, and he didn't know that they can do that. So you end up having to fight these things. And I think this partially kind of kicks off the events of what's going to happen in the game, because now these monsters can cross the barrier. You know, they can cross the threshold to being in the real world with other people now. So now you have him out, you have the MEA out, now you have these monsters out, and then there's also the guild. You have a lot of things kind of floating around to cause a lot of problems within the story, like a lot of like antagonists and things of that sort, to make this story kind of fit itself in. Now, I did mention side quests earlier. Both characters have like a phone. Like the game's menu kind of revolves around having a phone, you know, and it's kind of very modern in its own little way too. So I think that's really a nice little positive that the game does have. But with those side quests, you use those side quests to lower the malice in areas, and there are other things that I think will require the malice to be at a certain percentage, because it starts at 100. Oh, there is also another gameplay mechanic I forgot. There is a stress meter in this game for your characters, and they get stressed from talking to people. At least certain people. Not everyone will stress you out, but certain sets of people will. And when it gets to like 100, your character ends up being a liberated form for like the whole time, and you can't kind of switch it off until you lower the stress of the character. So that's something you have to maintain too. But back to the story. The side quests are what they are. It's usually, from what I can tell, you just have to go from point A to point B, or go and find this person here and fight them, and you'll get your rewards. Nothing too crazy. Now, to me, to kind of get to the end of this here, because I don't really have a ton to say about this game, but I will say this. I think the game looks okay. They did a very good job in how everything looks from the perspective of Shibuya, and I will have a video example or maybe even pictures of things, because they actually have like a lot of things down to a T from the actual real world of this game. So anything you might have seen in actual Shibuya and you play this game, you will probably recognize it here, because I think they got the 109 here, if I remember that correctly. The 109, they got like a bunch of those advertising spots for like the Tsutaya, the Hisamitsu, all types of things here. Even an Adidas shop is in this, and I think that's kind of out of place in a way, because you would think it would be just a generic copy clone of it. It might not have been Adidas, it might have been Adidas or something like that, but it never did. It was just flat out Adidas. I think it looks pretty decent. The gameplay loop is going to be okay, but with this being Furyu that picked this up, and they also had a hand in developing this, they've had a strange little way of getting some really niche titles along the way to publish. And especially since they developed this one, it really makes it kind of stick out, because they published Crystar, which I played and beaten, Cry Machina, and then I own both of the Caligula Effect games. And they developed this alongside Natsume Atara, who you may know for like quite a few of their handheld games that they made back in the day, or their Super Nintendo games, and even a few current things if you look them up, and even a pretty rare PS4 game that they helped develop too. You can look that one up if you end up finding out what game that is. Look them up if you have time. You'd be surprised about some certain devs' history and whatnot. And let me talk about the soundtrack. The soundtrack's gonna be great. I can already tell you that now. One thing I will say about some of those games, like the ones I just mentioned, like the Crystar, the Cry Machina, the Caligula Effect, the soundtracks are usually pretty damn good. But this one here is going to be great because, well, Yoko Shimomura is on here. She strikes again, and I can tell you it's going to be great. You can tell though in certain places, at least in the fog dimension from Marin's side, there is a budget constraints somewhere along the line that kind of hit this game. If you aren't a huge graphics hound and are some sort of understanding, you'll be fine with this game. It's coming out soon. I hope for a success. But it's one of those games that I think that when you sit down with it long enough, it depends on you. It really depends on you. Like I said, I think the gameplay loop is fine. The combat is whatever, but it's lacking some oomph if I had to say so myself, because a lot of times that's what kind of throws some games down. Like, you want to be able to feel your hits. Like, there's no weight to the hits in this game. It really isn't. Like, your characters kind of float and do what they want. Well, at least Sari does. Marin does not float or anything like that. He's like kind of straight down like a striker, and there is another character you end up getting in the game on Marin's side in chapter 2, and you can also carry over your save data once you finish, because like I said, you won't be spending no more than maybe an hour, maybe an hour 10 minutes in this demo. So yeah, right now the best I can tell you about Reynatis is, if you definitely see yourself wanting to try it, go try the demo. Go give the demo a shot, sit down with it, and play it. If you're not okay with what it does, that's understandable. I'm not gonna push you to buy this game, but it's one of those games that if you pick it up, pick it up. If you're not going to pick it up, then don't. Just plain and simple. I don't know which ways to kind of like end this off on, because I think this is one of those games that's gonna end up getting like a very middling score, because it's gonna do this thing that Food of You published games kind of do, where they hit real good on like narrative. They can hit real good on the narrative and the characters, but they miss on the gameplay. Or in another game that they may have published that I at least seen a review of, the gameplay hit, but the narrative and the characters did not. So I hate to see that for this game here, because I think it's going to be one of those games where it's half the package is good, but the other part of the package just does not hit at all. Or it may end up being someone's favorite little hidden gem, you know. You never know. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the demo as of right now. Just stay blessed out there, y'all. That's all I can tell you. I love you. Take care. And it's been Willie DC. I'll be back again later with more stuff, all right? Peace.